So today we're talking about, I guess, coming out of winter, spring preparation for some of our raised garden beds. And today we're here at our Vego beds. We got some of these, I guess, 2 years ago now? 3 years ago now? And Alice and my son Curtis put these together, and then we filled them up, and we did the whole hugelkultur thing when filling them with logs and different kinds of soils and things like that. And we'll get into that in a whole nother video and show you some of that. But we're basically coming out of winter almost, and we're in North Texas in the Dallas area, and we're wanting to get our spring crop of vegetables and flowers and things like that going that we can outside. But what we want to talk about is last fall, after we had cleared out all of the plants and things like that that were pretty much tired and we were done with, Alice had some packets of seeds that were old, and we just decided to try and experiment, and she put those out. Lettuces, beets, carrots, I think bok choy. What else did you plant? Yeah, different radishes and things like that. And yes, some of these have already expired. Like I said, we're at the end of coming out. We're nearly coming out of winter in Dallas, and we've recently had some near 0 degree nights, which is not, I guess, unusual for Dallas, but it's not that common. But we're getting ready to rip everything out of these beds today and get the soil refreshed and get it ready so we can plant everything. So we're continuing to prep the soil, getting ready for some spring planting, and we're actually going to direct sow some of the seeds into this soil. And because we've previously had things planted in it, and even over winter had some things planted in it that you saw earlier, we need to kind of rejuvenate the soil, if you will. And by that, I mean we want to just get in here and work it a little bit and clean some things out, like bigger rocks, maybe even some big pieces of bark and things like that, that really wouldn't be conducive or productive to seed starting when you're direct sowing your seeds. And to do that, and you'll see as we're getting in here, there are still a lot of roots and things under the surface from the old plants that we previously had in here, and you can see all of that. So we want to be sure and bust some of that up and get that out of here. And you may want to use a garden tool like that. You might have a spade where you can try to turn it, but because of all these roots and things like that that are in here, you can see there's all these little small roots that are left over from the plants that we had. So what we like to do, miss the trash bucket or the compost bucket, what we like to try to do is I have an auger, and I'm going to run that auger in here and try to break it up initially with some of that, But down in the bottom of this, there's still some of the big logs and things like that that we put in initially when we set these beds up. So we can't go that deep in here necessarily. And in the center of this, each of these beds, buried down in the dirt or down in the soil, approximately right there and over here, there is a rod that runs between each side of these beds to give it some strength. So that's why we don't, and the fact that the big logs are down in the bottom of it, that's the reason that we don't take a little tiller that we have and just get in here and start working this. So what we discovered that we could use is just a little auger with my battery powered drill and break some of this up initially. So let's do that. It's just in my case, this one happens to be just a little Black & Decker 20 volt cordless drill and just a little garden auger for planting bulbs or small plants or something like that. And I'll put a link to that in the description down below of where we got this on Amazon. But that's one of the things that I like to use, and I prefer to wear my safety glasses when I'm doing this because who knows what it's going to throw up or what's going to happen. But then I just get in here and I start working it. And you can see here how it's pulling up all these roots, and that's the kind of stuff that, we could leave it in there, but I'd really like to get it out because I don't want the new seeds that we're planting to be competing with, the previous season's plants trying to still grow.
And when Dawn was showing you that, sometimes there's rocks in there, there's bigger chunks of bark, it just happens because we're using a lot of different soils in here. Sometimes we're putting some of the compost that we've created. We'll use bags of garden soil. Sometimes I'll just, throw a bag of potting mix in. But it just, as it packs down over the course of a season, it exposes things that are in there, and possibly even some of the material, the matter that we put in here in the bottom when we did the hugelkultur in the bottom, which was logs and just different matter, breaks down and then kind of presents itself whenever it rains, and of course when we're doing this kind of thing and digging up stuff, digging holes to put plants in, and including making holes for seeds and stuff. It's amazing how much we can end up with. And there's leaves because we have a lot of trees. This tree is laden with leaves and will be again soon, and we have that going on, and we have a lot of oaks on our property, and they're just now, several of them are losing their old leaves and putting, the new ones are pushing the old leaves off, and so they're starting to come even though it's spring. But it's amazing how the roots just get so thick in there. Like some of the stuff you saw me earlier pulling up the lettuce, I couldn't get over how much rootage there was with just all those little lettuce plants that I just threw the seeds out here a few months ago. So anyway, we're just trying to make it to where it's a little more amenable and workable so that our seeds have a chance, because some of the seeds are just going to be things that are like root root crops, root vegetables like carrots or radishes or beets or whatever that are going to grow underground, and they really don't like to be started in a pot and then disturbed. When you disturb the roots, that root is your fruit, and when it gets disturbed, you're going to end up with, weirdly shaped carrots, which, whatever. I'm going to eat a weirdly shaped carrot for sure. I'm not going to throw it out, but it's just nice to give them a chance to grow straight down if that's what they need to do. And so, yeah. Do you have anything else to add, honey?
No, just you can see
Look at
a lot of
that.
rocks and things like that that have maybe worked their way to the surface or
How?
found their way into this bed.
How?
Well, as we've added other
Well,
compost,
right.
things like this
And
get
that's what I was saying. It's you
introduced.
just never know what all's, and we're not sifting every brand new bag of soil that we get.
And I may even have to, after we get through with the video, need to take my cutters and clean some of this out of there. But for now, it's still good to go. So it just saves a little bit of work instead of using the spade or a shovel or something like that. And these augers are not that expensive.
Wow.
And when you're using one of these, like this little 20-volt one, it does the job. Uh, you really need to hang on to it. Don't let it get away from you. And you could get a larger driver, like there's some of the 40-volt and things like that out there that actually have another handle. And I've even seen bigger augers, not only longer but bigger diameter, where the blades are actually at, that you could use. But for us on these raised beds, this works.
Okay, so we got this bed fairly decent. Man, there's a lot of roots, and I'll bet you there's still a lot of roots, but it's looking pretty good now. It's pretty soft. There's still a few chunky things here and there, but when I'm planting seeds, I'm going to pay really close attention to the area where I'm planting also. And if there's anything that I think is going to impede those seeds germinating and coming up, and if they're a root veg, make sure they don't have any problems, anything in the way of them. I'll do that. But so now we're going to go ahead and add, we just went ahead and grabbed a couple of bales of ProMix so we could have something a little bit easier to work with, and top dress this. And Dawn's just going to kind of mix it around on top. We're not really gonna, we don't want to mix it in. We're just sort of adding this extra new layer, and it's pretty good stuff. It's got a lot of perlite in it. It's soft. It's not too chunky. I don't think there's a whole lot of chunks in ProMix, and that's why it's probably a little more expensive. But um,
It's actually a general purpose growing medium, I think.
right. So he's just gonna sort of lay that out there, and then even though this already has some nutrients in it, we're gonna amend it just a little bit. So as soon as he just sort of lays it out, we're gonna add whoops, and he's doing his feet. And by the way, we're bucking quite the wind today. Now we're into March. March has just started, and I don't know if it's the wind or the temperature, but it's coming in like a lion for the wind, but for the temperature it's coming in like a lamb. So we'll see how it ends. But anyway, so he's just going to roughly just kind of spread this out, and then we're going to add I'm just going to throw some garden tone in, just using a bag of this is urban vegetable food. It's kind of a multi-purpose organic, you can see my shadow, um, food, and we're just gonna kind of add that so that we have just a little bit more going on. besides what came in the soil itself. Because once the elements hit it, the rain comes, which we're supposed to get a rain tonight. It already starts breaking down all those nutrients and stuff that come in these potting mixes and soils and things. So he's getting that kind of ready to go. Get some of the bigger chunks broken up, but you can see it's so easy to work with. I mean, it just breaks up super easy. Nothing's that hard. Of course, this is a little bit dry. I mean, I could see where if it was wet, it would be harder to work with, but uh, it's not been sitting out there getting wet. It's been dry for a few days. So anyway, we're gonna get that going. It's pretty good. We're not going to worry about too much about how it looks right at this minute, but we're just going to go ahead and the smell. It's always and we've got this wind going on. That smell is always a little pungent when you first open the bag. This has been sealed up, all winter in the shed, and I'm just gonna kind of do a light dusting over the top. And everything that doesn't blow away is going to stay in there, and we're gonna mix it in pretty quick so that we don't lose anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and, because I really want better coverage than that. So yeah, there we go. So that was about a half bag. So hopefully that's about what I'll use on the other one as well. But we're just going to go ahead and just mix that in lightly. We're not going to do a big churn or anything. We just want it kind of up near the surface, just to kind of help amend and get this ready for seeds. And we may put some plants in there too, but we're not quite there yet, weather wise and temperature wise. So anyway, that's where we're at, and we're just going to keep amending and zhuzhing and just making it beautiful and ready to accept whatever we're going to put in it. Okay, so it's starting to get a little more sunny in the area that we're working, and it's beautiful out here. It is breezy, but it's getting warm, and our high was supposed to be upper 70s, but I guarantee you we're going to get into 80. Yeah, there's an airplane. Sorry about that. Hope you're not picking that up. Anyway, so the Vego beds are basically ready to go. Probably not gonna plant in one of them today because it's not quite time yet for some of the things that I want to do direct sowing outside. But I do have a few things that I want to go ahead and get in today. So I've got some carrots. I love growing carrots. As a matter of fact, I have some that I winter sowed in some pots. And while they only made little baby ones, there were some leftover seeds, like, when I put all these other ones out right before winter started. They're just sweet little carrots, and they've been coming up, and we've enjoyed those. So I always like to have carrots going, and we can pretty much pull them off when it's the dead of summer, sometimes it's kind of hard, but any other time, especially early spring and fall, we can get some pretty good crops of carrots. So I've got some red cord chantenay, and they're so pretty. It, they can get up to 6 inches long. I don't know that I've ever had one that's 6 inches long, but um, they have thick, blunt roots, make it reliable even in heavy or shallow soil. So that's good because we kind of have a little bit of everything in our soil. But they're uh, they're just really good and sweet and good for like if you're want a bigger carrot for like stews and soups and stuff like that. Anyway, so they're good. So uh, when to sow outside, which is recommended, is 2 to 4 weeks before your average last frost date, and when the soil temperature is at least 45 degrees, ideally 60 to 85. We're there. Our soil temp is climbing. As a matter of fact, I had my hands down in some of the soil and it's warm. So I think we're good to go. And on this you can also do successive sowing. So we might plant part part of a row, and then 1 to 2 weeks later I'll come back out and plant another row so that I just have a succession of crop coming up throughout the the summer. Can you see it? Sorry, I keep moving it so that I can read it. Anyway, and of course, again, this is a root crop. Not really recommended to sow inside in small pots or anything like that because you just don't really want to disturb those roots once they start getting established. And you'll end up with weird, funky, or not at all carrots. So anyway, I'm gonna do that. And I know that I just pulled up a bunch of lettuce. It was, past its prime. It was getting old. Some of it was bolting. Um, so me and the next door neighbors are going to enjoy that tonight for dinner. But I also still have some in another bed that will be another video that we'll introduce to you, our other raised bed. But I'm going to go ahead and put in some romaine lettuce, which I love, and I never let it get to where it looks like the kind that you buy in the grocery store, like this. I mean, it gets tall enough, but here I like to really harvest it when it's younger and more tender. So that's going in today, and then the folks at, of course, these are all botanical interest seeds. They always send, and I've ordered these before too, but these little thank you packets of seeds for it's mesclun. So it's a variety of lettuces that are in this packet, and they are so good. I mean, there's all kinds of. I wonder if it tells. Let's see. It might say inside. This might be one of the ones that has a recipe for a really good vinaigrette salad dressing inside the packet. But anyway, it's just a bunch of really good uh, tender leafy greens. There's red leaf. There's I don't. There might be butter lettuce in here actually, and then just some other green leaf and stuff like that. So and they come up. They do great. This is going to be my third packet to sow, and I've had great luck with the other two. So anyway, I'm gonna get these ready to go. Again, we're fighting a little bit of a breeze out here today, so I'm going to be really careful and try not to lose too many seeds. Hopefully none. I've got my journal. I'm going to write in it here in a little bit when I'm sitting back out here, hopefully enjoying a cool beverage and looking over the land and appreciating our labors and stuff. I did want to tell y'all that I finally got my act together and kind of cleaned up the area in the house where I have all this stuff. And I have a bunch of my, these were all over the place. So I opened them all up and got my plant markers all wrangled together in a cute little jar. And I went ahead and ordered some new paint markers, some garden markers, because, they just, as a matter of fact, Normally, I would let these go through the washing machine because I would forget that I put them in my pocket. But while we were cleaning up the Vego beds, I harvested some plant markers that I had already used, and they just do not keep their markings. Usually, by the time I can't read them anymore, it doesn't matter because the plant's up and I know what it is, and it doesn't matter when I planted it because I also write it down in my journal most of the time. But um, we've used Sharpies, and I've had other garden markers and stuff. So we'll see. These are this is more like a paint pen. So I know that it's got one of those little like some ball bearing in there. Um, and it hopefully will work. Just remembered, I guess it's black. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope this isn't white. Why would they do a white one? But I do have some white paint markers, and that's what made me think of that. Anyway, so I'm going to use these. We'll see how it goes. Um, but I just, I hope that I can at least get, a couple of months out of them before they fade out, which is great because then you can go back and reuse your markers. But my God, goodness, it's um, sometimes it's just sort of, it'd be nice to be able to see them for a little while. So anyway, I'm going to reuse these, and I'm going to go ahead and write these up before I get started, and hopefully they won't blow away or I'll lose them, so that I have everything ready to go once I get planting. And I was also going to mention, Dawn was talking about how we have cattle panel, and last year we used that cattle panel to create an archway from the inside of both Vego beds, and we could walk underneath it. At least I could. Could you? Yeah, you could too. I'm like 5'4", but he's 6'6", so um, sometimes I get to walk under things that he doesn't. But we put those in, and we grew some beans and some peas and some cucumber that did really well. Tried some squash. The squash gets so heavy, the plants get so heavy, and the squash gets so heavy that I didn't really want to train up those trellises, if you will, very well. But I don't want to give up. So I'm hoping, and I need to talk to Dawn about this, but I'm hoping that we can try that again this year because I have a couple of cucumbers that I want to try, and I know they'll do well. And I have some Kentucky pole beans that I want to put on there, and that should happen pretty soon. I think in the next week or two, those will be ready to go in the ground because they're really supposed to be planted after your last frost date, not before, like some of these things. So uh, I might fudge a little bit and put them in a little bit early. But remember, we can cover our crops because we know how to do that. And we're not going to have anything that's going to be, knock on wood, um, too crazy weather-wise. Even if we do have a freezing night, it's not going to be. It may be one, it could be two, but it's not going to be like our February weather, which is our worst and coldest time of the year. We're fighting wind, and we're fighting storms, which can be a good thing, but hopefully nothing too severe. But we are getting into our severe weather season here in North Texas. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get started on planting some of this stuff, and I'll talk to Don about whether or not he's going to let me use that cattle panel anymore in this season. And I did want to mention that our Vego beds are 2 feet tall. Are they 2 feet tall? Something like that. And I love them, but they can be, they're not a raised bed. And I didn't want like a 4 foot, 3 foot, or 4 foot tall bed because I didn't want that much dirt to have to deal with. And but it is kind of hard to get in there sometimes, and sometimes I'm on my knees next to it, or I'm sitting on something, and that's okay. But it can be sort of hard to reach across and get into and work on like the center of it. We set these up to be 4 feet by 8 feet, so can usually reach pretty well, 2 feet over, and then come in at the other side, but with the trellises, that's a little bit different too. And we'll explain that once we get that set up. But I think that this year, because I normally always put, and I will again, some flowers in there to attract pollinators over to this side of the yard. Not that there isn't plenty of other things out here that will attract them, but I think I'm going to put a row of flowers straight down the middle of each of the beds because that way I'm not fussing with that stuff. I mean, they'll need tending to, and uh, working over, but I'm not going to be harvesting anything off of them unless I'm doing, a cut flower arrangement or something. But I'm probably going to put some things in there that I won't. But anyway, I'm going to put those in there, and that way I'm not worrying about what's in the middle and trying to reach over so much. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be an experiment because everything's an experiment when it comes to gardening for us and most everybody else too. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that I'm going to do that, and we'll actually show you what's going to happen. I don't have anything ready to put out there yet, but our seed starting that's gone on the inside of the house has come along well, and we will probably have a lot of things that we can put out there pretty soon. So anyway, I'm going to get started. So wish us all luck. Thanks. All right. So you saw how fluffy, and man, I can even see this stuff moving right now. It's just moving back and forth with this wind. Since this is so lightweight and airy, I'm going to go ahead and just finally mist the top and get it to where it's kind of settled down a little bit before we plant. Just give everything a chance to. I'm actually only going to be planting on this one side and back there. So, but I can go ahead and, oh yeah, this is going to take forever. Mist is not what I want. I'm going to do shower instead. There we go. Just lightly coat the top, get it to where it kind of lays down a little bit. It doesn't have to be saturated or anything. I'm going to come back and water it gently again once we get the seeds in. Just kind of get it where it'll lay down, and I may have to water in between in case, because it is windy and it's going to dry out. So just get these areas watered in just a little. Okay. And I know that a lot of people think, oh gosh, don't put your hands in dirt. You should wear gloves and stuff like that. And I do wear gloves for a lot of reasons, and it depends on what I'm doing. And if I'm pulling weeds, I'm wearing gloves. It just depends. But when it comes to planting seeds, I need to feel the soil. I need to feel the seed. I need to make sure that I have control over it. And I just, if I'm wearing a glove, I can't feel it. I can't understand or feel what I'm touching. Even when I'm harvesting stuff, I want to touch the plant because I just want to make sure that I'm not ripping something out or doing something weird. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and put my markers in. I'm just gonna put a row of carrots just along this edge here, and then I'm going to do uh, my lettuces are going to be down on this end. I know I said I'm going to make a deal in the middle, but for the flowers, but I'm just going to I'm going to put the mesclun there, and I'm going to put the romaine right in here somewhere. Have to be way out there because our panels are they're 4 feet, right? Yeah. So there's like 2 feet here and 2 feet down there, and then the panels are here. And that's what these are for. They help hold those panels upright and stiff so that they don't bow out. But anyway, so it's going to be roughly in this center area, and that's where we're going to put cucumbers, and I think I am going to do some squash, but I'm not necessarily going to try and train it. And my beans I'm going to do on the other side in the other Vego bed. So I'm not being particular about how many. I mean, I'm not clumping them up or anything, but I'm kind of spreading them out because I know that I'm going to have to come back and thin these out a little bit in order for everybody to have a chance. There's going to have to be some thinning, and I want to make sure I've got coverage, but not too much. And really just this little trench, these are only need to be planted like a quarter of an inch deep. This little trench is more about me just having sort of a straight line. I wouldn't say it's super straight. I mean, I could definitely put, a string or something, but it's really just about me trying to know how far away from the edge I am. But I'm just barely covering where I went over. I love this soil. It's even if it looks like it's a clump, it just breaks up. There's nothing really hindering anything here. So anyway, just sort of cover back over. Like I said, quarter of an inch. That's not very deep, and I just want to make sure that I've got a little bit of a layer of soil on top, and then I'll come back over it and water it in. And that's all it takes for that. So I've got several seeds left. I'm going to do my succession sowing. So I'm going to get this watered in, and then in a week or two, I'm going to come back in with one more row at least. And hopefully we'll have lots of good carrot crops. So anyway, I'm going to get busy on my lettuces, and I'm going to, probably, I don't know, sort of cut off. I'm going to try not to get them tangled up too much with my carrots, but it's not a big deal because, again, and we're going to be thinning too. So they can cohabitate together down here in this corner, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. You see it? I'm making a shadow. I didn't use that much. So I'm also going to sort of do some succession sowing. Man, that's not that easy to say. with this stuff as well. So, because I like for my lettuces, the only thing is it won't be long, and the lettuces won't be. Um, they'll want to bolt because it'll be so warm. But over here, and that's why I'm doing this over here, you can see this huge shadow of a tree right here at this time of the day, at the sunniest time of the day. There is a lot of mottled uh, sunlight over here. So it's going to get its sun, but it's also going to have some shade. So maybe it won't be quite so uh, so hot on it, and I'll get a little more time. Okay, so I barely made a trench. Again, that was just for me to have a straight line, which Dawn informed me that my carrot line was not that straight, but I don't care mostly. but um, but this isn't even. This is like surface sewing to an eighth of an inch deep. So we're not even. I mean, I'm just barely letting some dirt. I really just want to make sure. I'm getting over into my carrots now, but just want to make sure that the seeds stay put. They can even be showing a little bit, but that's how that likes to be planted. Same thing with this mesclun, this thank you lettuce. And I guess I shouldn't say I do succession sowing per se. I just want another crop of it, and I don't know exactly when that'll be, but it could be pretty soon after these come up. I could, start another grouping, and chances are good. Would the cameraman hold that? Because I think it's going to blow away. Um, we have the other bed that we're going to introduce you to, our other raised bed, and I have a lot of success with lettuces and Swiss chard and tomatoes and sometimes peppers and basil, a lot of herbs in that bed. And that's where I can also do another round of um, sowing of these lettuces. So I just like to have lettuce all the time. So, okay, again, just barely kind of patting it down, making sure that, and these are dark seeds. I didn't show you. The other ones, at least you could see. These, when you get them in the dirt, they just disappear, basically. At least to my eyes, they do. So, anyway, just sort of patting them in, making sure. Well, that's a little root. Just can't get over how many roots we have, and how big they are in these beds every year. We don't like if I do another crop of stuff, which I'm sure I will in the fall. We don't go through all of the process that we do for in the spring. In the spring is when we really clear these out. Like what we just showed you, where we really work the soil, put in new soil, amend the soil, clean out the roots, clean out anything big. But, sometimes I just wonder if like tree roots, sometimes are getting up under here and coming up because some of those roots are huge. And I'm just trying to figure out what plants did I have that had roots as, almost as big around as my pinky. So anyway, who knows? But I guess I could test them and really look it over, but I don't want to. I'm not that worried about it. It just amazes me though when I see them like that. So you can see that already. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I can see that the dirt around the carrots that I turned up is already getting pretty dry, and there's some dry spots over here. So I'm going to get busy really watering these in, um, so that they're all tucked in for the night and everything, and just make sure that everything's taken care of. And
How are
then,
you going to keep the neighbor cat out of this?
Well, you know what? I try to keep an eye on it, but the neighbor cat likes to come over and, you know, do her business sometimes. So we have to just kind of pay attention. But I can usually tell when she's been in here. She she's very she makes her little marks and everything. So luckily it hasn't happened that many times, honestly. But that kind of freaks me out that I'm going to come across that. But anyway, we'll just see. Who knows? We have possums and raccoons and a lot of squirrels. Anything could be happening in here, and that's we found. I didn't really show that much, but we had pecans in here, a lot of pecans, and the pecan tree is actually now gone because we made a decision, an executive decision about the pecan tree a couple of weeks ago. But it is way down at the front of our property. It's not anywhere near here. I mean, there's no way a pecan blew or whatever over here. So the squirrels, everything are just moving stuff around and, you know, hoarding them up and putting them in anywhere they can find, soft dirt. So that's how that happens a lot of times, including the birds. But anyway, so that's just, it's just the way it is when you've got trees, and we love our trees, and we don't want to get rid of them, but we've just got a lot of like natural beauty that we love, and the animals that come with that. So it is what it is. Anyway, thanks for watching that, and we'll continue on.